Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to Bookspin. I thought I'd try doing a book haul video. This is not something I usually do and I haven't done one for a very long time, but I've picked up some really interesting gems recently and I thought it'd be interesting to share. And these are all science fiction books and many of them are vintage and they come from a variety of sources. So let's get to it. The first one is called Galaxy 666. I bought this one online and I learnt about this book through an online forum. It's quite an obscure title, published in the 60s, and many people say this is the worst science fiction book ever written. And of course, hearing that, I had to find it and read it. So this is on the Book Spinner, and this will be very interesting to read, I think. And just after Christmas, I went on a trip to Scotland, and I went on a day trip to Glasgow, and Glasgow has a couple of very nice secondhand bookshops, and they sell a lot of great vintage stuff. So I picked up 5 secondhand sci-fi paperbacks from Glasgow, and this includes this copy of The Silver Locusts, or The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury, which is a book which I've been looking for quite a long time, and it is perhaps his best known work among Fahrenheit 451. So I'm really looking forward to this one. This is a nice vintage edition. These days it's more commonly known as The Martian Chronicles, but when it was first released in the UK, it was titled The Silver Locusts. We also have a Clifford Simak book, Time and Again, which is a time travel novel. I saw this and I was intrigued by the blurb, which says, Asher Sutton has a book in his hands, a book that would change the history of the galaxy, a book by himself that he had never written, or had he, or would he? Simak traces this dazzling paradox along paths of terror and through times past, present, and far into the distant future. Clifford Simak is an interesting writer, and another interesting writer is Bob Shaw. I've got another one of his books up on my bookshelf, and I found this one is called Who Goes Here, which apparently has something to do with a memory erasing machine, and it's got a light-hearted, humorous tone. So I thought, yeah, I'll pick that up. I've also got Jizzle by John Wyndham. This is a short story collection. I like John Wyndham's novels. I've not read any of his short stories. The one story which I think appealed to me is in this illustration. It says, the tube in the rush hour that was so crowded it seemed like hell. In fact, it was hell. Oh, great. And something a bit more modern, Old Man's War by John Scalzi. I've heard a lot of good things about this book. I've heard it's quite humorous, kind of military sci-fi. And it says, John Perry did 2 things on his 75th birthday. First, he visited his wife's grave. Then he joined the army. So, yeah, I think that will be a nice fun read. So that does it for December. I've got quite a few more titles in January. So to start off with, early on in the year, I went to an auction where they did have a few books, including sci-fi books. I picked up one book, which is this very beat-up copy of The Steam-Driven Boy and Other Strangers by John Sladek. I'd never heard of this author before, but this is a short story collection with a humorous tone, and it includes some parodies of well-known authors such as Robert Heinlein, Asimov, Ray Bradbury, and Arthur C. Clarke. So that'll be an interesting one. We also have John Wyndham, Trouble with Lichen. I picked this up in a charity shop. This is a book which I've been looking for a while. It's on the theme of extending the human lifespan. Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. This is actually one of the few new books, it's not secondhand, which I picked up. A modern classic dystopian tale. One of my aims this year is to catch up on or reread or read for the first time many of the great 20th century dystopias like Brave New World and We and 1984, and I thought this would be an interesting one, a more recent one, which I've heard good things about, because I've not read Octavia Butler before, and I've heard this is a good place to start. I've got the Folio Society edition of Uppbeat, which I did an unboxing video on, so I can't wait to get stuck into that. I've got these 4 books here, which I won in an online auction hosted by Matt from Bookpilled. I've got some really interesting titles from this auction. So Yevgeny Zamyatin's We, again, one of those classic dystopias. I've not read this one yet, so I do need to read this one. Looking forward to that. We've got Robert Silverberg, Up the Line. Another author which I really need to read because everyone raves about him. And I've heard this book is an interesting twist on the time traveler narrative. So yeah, I've heard this is one of his better ones. Tangents by the late Greg Bear. A short story collection. Again, Greg Bear, an author I've never read. So I've got so much catching up to do with these well-known sci-fi writers. And this includes the original short story version of Blood Music, which is one of his best novels, I'm told. So can't wait to read that. And The Platypus of Doom and Other Nihilists. I don't really know what to expect from this. It's a bit of an unknown quantity. I just, when I saw it, I thought I have to get this book. Okay. The title and the cover alone makes it worthwhile. But apparently this is quite a rare book to find. I don't know. But if you look on the back, it's basically a collection of stories, including The Platypus of Doom, The Armadillo of Destruction, The Aardvark of Despair, and The Clam of Catastrophe. So that will be interesting. It's got Harlan Ellison's seal of approval. He says, zany, witty science fiction from a fresh, invigorating talent. Arthur Byron cover. And finally, the most recent title I picked up is This Immortal by Roger Zelazny. I have read Zelazny before. I only found out about this title recently. Apparently this book won the Hugo Award for Best Novel. It was the co-winner with Dune, but people tend to forget this book because Dune is such a famous book. People forget that This Immortal also won the Hugo that year. And I've been looking for books with immortality as a theme, because I'm thinking of doing a video at some point on immortality in science fiction. And I thought I need to do a bit more background reading before I'm ready to make that video. And there's actually quite a lot of titles out there with that theme, but this one piqued my interest the most. So again, I can't wait to read this one. All of these titles are now on the book spinner, and I can't wait to get stuck into them. So if you've read any of these books, or if you have any comments or thoughts, please let me know in the comments. And I'll see you again soon for some more sci-fi content.